one of the big things that you talk about is yeast. And I will tell you, it is a hot topic right now. I'm hearing it from pet parents all the time.
We need yeast. So I always say at the start of a yeast lecture, I'll say, hands up who's got a yeast infection. And nobody wants to put their hands up. But like, everyone has to have a yeast infection or you're dead. If you don't have yeast, E. coli will grow out of hand. And if it works, great, it was yeast. If not, great, it wasn't. You know, it's information you need. When you've got one of these chronically inflamed dogs, it's like playing that Guess Who game with your kids. The most likely options is bad food as number one, and the second one is an internal yeast issue. So they're very hard to diagnose an internal yeast issue. It's not just about more yeast cells in the poo we're after finding out, because the yeast goes to the gut membrane and grows there with little fingers like a mushroom.
If the gut problems are outgoing, is there a set of signs that would go with it to give them a clue that they need to go to something like your yeast defense product?
When you think about FMT, it's the bacteria, but it's also all the yeast, all the healthy, happy yeast of a healthy so you're sending in the recruits from both sides. In a nice balance. These dogs you can't seem to get right, go to yeast for about $25 before I go to FMT, which is my very next step.
Welcome back to Microbiome Matters. I'm your host and pet health specialist, Melissa Natanson. Joining me today is none other than Dr. Conor Brady. For over a decade, he's been deep in the research, challenging outdated veterinary dogma, publishing one of the most comprehensive books on canine nutrition, feeding dogs, and educating thousands through his powerhouse online platform, Dogs First. So if his bio sounds too long to list, it's because it is. But know this. He's blunt, he's brilliant, and he's not afraid to ruffle a few feathers, or should we say fur. So grab your dog, grab your notebook. Today we're talking about food myths, gut dysfunction, and one of his favorite topics, yeast. What's feeding it, why it keeps coming back, and how to fix it for good. And yes, we're going to dive into where FMT fits into this whole gut picture. Welcome, Dr. Brady from Irish Time.
That was an awesome introduction, I have to say, Melissa. You called me a seasoned pro. That is a professional introduction. Yes, great to be here. Thanks very much. I do love talking gut health and poo. And so I don't know if you use the word poo over there. Do you use the word poo over in the?
We definitely use the word poo.
You do. You're not in the US, Melissa. You do sound a little bit USian, but you're Canadian, I assume. Are you like Legacy Biome, or where are you from?
Legacy is, but I'm not. I'm actually in California. One of the things that you're really getting known for is you're an internationally known speaker, because you're really speaking out on what's going on in the pet health world. So when you're fresh off this trip, what is one of the things that's at the forefront of your mind, the message that you were trying to get out the most right now when it comes to either pet parents or pet pros? What are we going to change?
Oh, I feel things are changing. I'm feeling very positive at the moment. I've been doing it for, 10 years. So there's been people maybe longer at it, but there was nobody coming to this, 10 years ago. It was hard to fill a room locally, let alone being flown across the ocean a few times a year. So the US is really taking off, and we need the US to take off because the UK, I'm from Ireland, the UK next door, they have quite a large percentage feeding real food to their pets. Low estimates are around 20 to 25% of pets are being fed fresh food now. So that's a huge portion. And you could probably add on another 10% people feeding food from supermarkets and whatnot. So the US, you need the US to come on side to really drive the market. So every time we're over there, the rooms are getting bigger. The audience is getting far more clued in. You used to be able to trot out this is how to make dog food. This is, talking about balance, and nobody wants to hear that stuff anymore. That was, 8 years ago. Now people want in-depth chat. So it's astounding how smart the population is. You no longer have to ask people who's feeding real food. They're all feeding real food. So we've moved on from even talking about, kind of less preferred diets. So I'm just totally enthused. Loads of natural vets I've never met before. Loads of people wanting to get seats. Just busy. So you just feel really, really enthused, and everybody is reading the right material, and you just come out with so many ideas. So I think we're doing everything right. I think we're doing as much as we can with the budget we have. We are the underlings. They've got the guns, but we've got the numbers. And I think we are changing. The market is changing. They're no longer picking up what the veterinary industry is putting down, and it's a good thing for pets everywhere. So I'm feeling really positive from that last trip, Virginia, last week.
Good to hear that, because it is getting more every day. And I know Naturally Healthy Pets, you were there. You had a great talk. I listened to it. I was chuckling at most of it. So it's going to be
Yeah.
entertaining.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to.
I loved
Yeah.
your mic drop. I'm not going to say it again because I shouldn't cuss, but I'll let you say it.
Which was
Hashtag.
that was that one. Oh yes. Okay. Well, I'll save it for when I'm talking about FMT. I'll save
Okay,
it. For,
sounds
yeah,
good.
it's too good. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you said that because as a canine nutritionist, sometimes I feel like I am beating my head against a brick wall every day. And I know just a couple of weeks ago, I got into a debate. I'm just going to stay away from online, everybody.
Perfect.
Find where your sources are. Dr. Conor Brady is real. He's been in this for decades and he's telling you straight from the horse's mouth and the research. The research is crystal clear that we've got to feed fresh food. And one of
Yeah.
the reasons I'm going to say this right now is because that fresh food feeds the microbiome. And that's one of the, if not the most important aspect when it comes to our pet's health. And that's what Dr. Brady's going to get into. Going back, I digress. Going back to what I was saying before. I mean, I got in the wrong place at the wrong time with the, those top 3 that shall not be named kibble brands, just, going on a tangent and trying to beat me down
Yeah.
about what real nutrition is. And I just think if you feed something that could last on a shelf for 8 months,
Yeah. What
it's
do you
not real
think
food.
it's doing to your gut? Mm. Yeah.
But we've got to make we've got to start making the
Yeah.
transition. What would you
Yeah.
say to them, Dr. I mean, I would just love for you to get in there and verbally
Yeah.
get out.
Oh, I love sparring with those companies, and I'm freer to do it over here in Ireland. They have you guys have awesome freedom of speech over there, but it's tricky to talk down about companies. You have to be very careful about what you say. Everything has to be backed up, like you said, with references. So when I wrote that book, there's thousands of references in it because I know how these companies can retaliate. So we've got a lot of dark stuff on how candy companies operate. That's all the documentaries are on Netflix. You can see from Poland Springs to how pet food is made and pet food. Like all the evidence is there to show us all is not well in that sort of industry, and particularly in the US. No offense to you guys, we've got our problems too, but in the US you have a feed category that we don't have, so you're able to use 4D meat, dead, diseased, dying, disabled meat in pet food. Meat that's been condemned, meat that hasn't seen a vet, meat that can travel in open top trucks. You can just Google those images, they're there. So this is stuff that you wouldn't give the mother-in-law, as they say over here. This is highly toxic material, leftover restaurant grease that roadkill cats and dogs. So SPB, sodium pentobarbital, is the second most likely reason for dry food to be recalled. The point, I'm not trying to shame all the people because we all fell for it at one stage and we thought it was true. But when you go to this talk last week, Susan Thixton from Truth About Pet Food, and you hear her just going through it very quickly, she's unbelievable. She's putting her neck on the line because the companies that she talks about don't take these things lying down. This is a multi-billion industry. It's bigger than the music industry. So you can imagine, this is, if you can imagine like, P. Diddy is one side of things, but you can imagine how dark pet food can be, So this is like, there is some dark stories out there. You can find TED Talks written about it. And there's loads of cool stuff out there. But I think the main thing is coming back to your point about real food. We know what the answer is for feeding pets. I mean, you get it, you have a kid and the kid comes off home. It's like, okay, what do I feed this now? Okay, I'm going to grind up some pear and mashed potatoes. Do you eat that? No. Okay, do you like rice? Oh, it likes rice. Okay, we'll feed it rice. I have no idea how complete her diet is. I don't know where she gets selenium from. I don't know where manganese is. And my kids are fine. I think there's a big push by these big candy companies to pretend that their complete products are best when actually there's no evidence of that at all. And that's not how we feed people normally. We know real food is best. And now the science is catching up quick smart. Every time dry food is compared to real biologically appropriate food, the dogs are significantly better. Gut health, ear health, skin health, inflammation markers. I mean, just on every count. So we know what to do. It's just there is a bit of a hangover from all the nonsense we've been fed for 30, 40 years that you can't. Of course, you can feed your children, but you better not feed your dog yourself. His butt might fall off for the want of some nutrient you've never heard of. So, I think we're just shaking that off now.
Well, what's your feel on how the tide is changing with vets in particular? I mean, we're getting a bigger and bigger line of integrative vets that are getting involved with nutrition. But just to take a quick personal note, Everybody knows my story with Darla. And if you don't, I'm going to give a quick little one.
Yeah.
So 12 years ago when I rescued her, she had massive amounts of problems. She had been on antibiotics because she was rescued in a pile of trash and started having massive allergies. So bad to the point where when the wind blows, she would break out in massive amounts
No
of
way.
hives.
Brutal.
It was horrible. And so, of
Mm.
course, the vets cue the steroids, cue the more antibiotics, cue the Benadryl, whatever it is. And we did a food intolerance test, and she came back literally red hot to everything. And so what did I do?
Whoa.
I did what most normal pet parent would do. I'm online. What do I do? What do I do? And I was stuck in this blinder of, I have to find a pre-made food that she can eat. I have to find a
Yeah.
commercial diet. And there wasn't a thing. And one day I asked my vet, I said, what am I supposed to feed her? And he goes, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's a doggy mama to do? And that's when
Yeah.
I started digging in. And I've been making her food ever since. And he said, don't make her food at home. It
Yeah,
won't be
she might
complete. Well, let
die.
me tell you, she's
Yeah.
16 years old now.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
And I mean, what was the, I know you've got a million stories, Dr. Brady, but is there like one thing that sticks out in your mind, or maybe a couple, that made you think, I got to do this different? Like,
Oh,
really
yeah.
got you on the nutrition trail.
I have mine ready to go. It's like I've been asked that question before, but
I'm sure.
I use this example for so many different questions. But I was in guide dogs, dream achieved. I came out of college and I just wanted to work with dogs all my life. This job comes up. I'm a guide dog trainer now, and I'm over in Australia, and I'm doing some lectures on nutrition, and I just started putting some real food into the dog's diet and seeing major improvements. But by real food, I'm talking about fish oil capsules and that kind of stuff, not like I'm feeding the dog raw dog food. That didn't happen until I was over in Australia, and I bumped into a couple of people and they said, check out this raw feeding thing. And I had a listen, and having the nutritional background, I said, okay, here we go. I'll give it a shot. Took my 3 worst cases that were on repeat courses of steroids, seeing the vets every month. We couldn't train them, couldn't get them on the road because they were so inflamed, and they massively improved. As soon as I changed the raw, no more inflammation, no more vet visits. The dogs were back on the road, and I was thinking, wow, this is something. And the local vets were just completely indifferent to me. They just said, well, and I was like, but these dogs cost 50 grand each. Like, this is a huge thing for a charity. We now got 3 dozen, and they didn't, that was just a non-event with the vet. So I was seeding. I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do here? Because you're all in contract to feed dry food. All the guide dog associations are bought by one particular candy company. And so, so I was really seeding. I was thinking, what am I going to do here? Because I can't keep on feeding this crap if this is the difference. And then I met a CEO over in Brisbane Guide Dogs. Her name is Chris Lane, an unbelievable woman, unbelievable CEO. And she had just changed 200 training dogs. That's 1 year to 1.5 of years of age. So young, healthy dogs, 200 of them from dry food to raw food. And their veterinary bills fell by 82%. And so this is a charity. Can you imagine what they'll do with hundreds of thousands of dollars? So she saw the difference. I got over, got to see the data, chat to the trainers. They said the difference in the dog. They were like, it's like training kids after a birthday party. If you're at a birthday party and the kids are there and the crap food is brought out, you don't bring out the homework then. You lock the kids outside because they're going to go bananas for a while because the poor food has been fed to them. So they said there's just a difference in the trainability of the dogs. So when I saw what the fresh food had done to those 200 training dogs, I knew I couldn't continue my career in guide dogs. And that was a big problem for me because I thought my life was going to be in guide dogs. I adored the association. And then I realized that the dry food is actually harming them and there was no way to get out. So that was the end of my job, really. I had to pack it in, and back to Ireland I went to become a raw dog food manufacturer, which was the worst 3 years of my life. Very, very, very difficult job. I mean, hats off to anyone doing it. Thank God they're there. It's a tricky job. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that your resource online exists, Your Dogs First, because that's really an incredible resource for both pet parents and pros and everyone. That resource is going to be in the show notes. So if you want to check it out and check out Dr. Conor Brady's website, it is incredible what you can learn. And if you haven't checked out his book, it's like the Bible of dog nutrition. So
yeah.
I would highly recommend it. So let's get into the guts of stuff. One of the big things that you talk about is yeast. And I will tell you, it is a hot topic right now. I'm hearing it from pet parents all the time. Like, my dog has yeast. My dog has yeast. Where's this coming from? Like, what's going on here? Let's break it down.
The yeast bit is the forgotten part of the biome. So we talk about bacteria because we found bacteria, 150 years ago, whenever we first discovered this. And then we started discovering penicillin and how we can fight bacteria. Don't forget, penicillin came from the fungal kingdom, which is where yeast comes from. But we forgot about that. And all we thought about was bacteria and antibacteria. And antibiotics saved millions of people. They're really, really effective drug. One of our only really effective cure of a drug. And so we were obsessed about antibacterial stuff, hate bacteria, fight bacteria, antibacterial products in the home, antibacterial products on the floor, which are shown to be absolutely nonsense. And so we've been obsessed with that for a century. But what we've forgotten about is the yeast part of the biome. Yeast are around just as long as bacteria. They multiply just as quickly. They can evade medicines just as quickly, and they can cause problems just as quickly. But they're not as numerous in the biome. If you were to take a sample, a handful of gut flora, they're only going to be a very small amount of that gut flora, but they're much bigger than bacteria. So they're 20 to 200 times bigger. So they are a forgotten half of the biome. They are really useful to us. We need yeast. So I always say at the start of a yeast lecture, I'll say, hands up who's got a yeast infection. And nobody wants to put their hands up. But everyone has to have a yeast infection or you're dead. If you don't have yeast, E. coli will grow out of hand. If you squish E. coli, Candida will grow out of hand. They all play crucial roles. Like the yeast, they fix your gut membrane, they communicate with your immune system, nanoproteins and stuff. I could talk about yeast all day. Incredibly useful little beasties where we need them in the guts and on our skin and in our ears, all a very normal part of the biome. The problem is when the numbers get out of whack. So when there's dis-ease in the environment. And so the temptation is to blame the group that grows and hate on them. They're the problem. And it's like, well,
like Candida.
Yeah, like your Candida. But it's like, well, why have you got Candida? Why have you got a bloom of Candida? What happened to you, buddy? Did you take some antibiotics? Did you have a shock? Did you take some bad medicine? Are you ill? There's many reasons why that can happen. But our rush is to, give antibiotics or anti-yeast medications, which are so dangerous. Pregnant people can't touch it. Azole medication, guys. Check out what the MRP enzyme does. So, this yeast stuff is just, it's so I get the worst cases. We get the worst cases at Dogs First, drconorbrady.com. We get the absolute worst cases. We've seen 5 vets and we were on all this medication. It's been going on 5 years and we have recurring skin or gut conditions. They're the 2 types of dogs we get. And most of the time I can help with over 50% of those dogs quickly by getting the diet correct, going through a few, how are you on turkey, dog? How are you on lamb? Very simple stuff, some simple natural additions. But around a third of those dogs were not getting better. They were on great food and they were still crazy inflamed. And in those dogs, my mind jumps to yeast very quickly. And it's a very simple natural cure. You pop in the solution for $25. And if it works, great, it was yeast. If not, great, it wasn't. It's information you need. When you've got one of these chronically inflamed dogs, it's like playing that Guess Who game with your kids. You're trying to knock down options. And the most likely options is bad food is number 1. And the second one is an internal yeast issue. So they're very hard to diagnose an internal yeast issue. It's not just about more yeast cells in the poo we're after finding out, because the yeast goes to the gut membrane and grows there with little fingers like a mushroom. So it's called candidiasis. So it's a dreadfully misunderstood disease. I'm putting my lecture on yeast up on drconorbrady.com next week for free. Yeah, it's there. It's an hour and a half long. This is what I'm getting paid to go around the world talking about at the moment. And I'm going to put it up there because the information is so valuable to chronically itchy people. People always think that a yeasty dog has to smell of cheesy Doritos or you have to see it on the skin. Just hair loss and chronic itch is enough to suspect it might be going on. It'll upset the biome. So you can actually do a poo test and the bacterial biome will be all over the place. And they'll say you've got a dysbiosis and all everyone ever thinks is bacterial dysbiosis, but you can have a yeast issue that's fueling that dysbiosis. So these dogs you can't seem to get right, go to yeast for about $25 before I go to FMT, which is my very next step. And with those 2 steps, I have eradicated that. I've gotten that figure from 55, 60% up to 90, 95% of my cases are now they don't come back because of these 2 simple little steps I've put in, which have just been complete game changers. And the yeast I need will be actually in the FMT too. So talk about resetting the bacteria and the yeast, which we'll talk about down the road. But the whole yeast thing is it's a huge topic. It's very misunderstood. It's undiagnosed. And so if you don't diagnose that, you'll just keep on treating the symptoms like a house on fire. And you're worrying about the smoke coming out the windows all the time. And you're focused on the windows. How do we stop the smoke coming out the chimney? But there's a house, there's a little fire inside. So, don't turn off the smoke alarms, dum. You got to
Yeah.
get out of bed and find out what that is. And if you never suspect yeast, you'll never find it, and you'll be on a lifetime supply of these crap foods, crap drugs. Well, effective drugs to say the least, but not the way you want to fix the dog. There's no cure that way.
I mean, admittedly, it's a little bit of a new world for me. I listened to your lecture at NHP. I was on the virtual boards, and the virtual boards were blowing up. I mean, the amount of questions, and I know you couldn't get to them all, so I'm going to ask a few today.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of pet parents asking, would it be I know you kind of said it, but would it be the default? So if the gut problems are outgoing, is there a set of signs that would go with it to give them a clue that they need to go to something like your yeast defense product?
Yeah.
Which I bought right away. I just had it on hand. I'm just gonna have this.
Yeah, it's a good one. Cheap one to have. It's easy peasy. Yeah, like the signs of an internal yeast condition, the number one for me would be a dog with recurring topical yeast conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So I strongly suspect, like if you have a bacterial issue on your skin flora is not right in your skin, it's usually because you've got a gut flora issue. Invariably, most skin conditions are gut conditions. Helsinki University showed us this. So most of them arise in the gut, and what you're seeing is the smoke coming out the roof. And so I think with recurring yeasty ears, you treat the yeasty ear with, well, we've got a solution for that as well. It's called Propitium. But you treat the yeasty ear with a product. I recommend ours, of course. And once that's gone away, when it comes back again, and it usually does, you can't just keep on treating that with when you can. But it's like, what is the story? Who's lighting these fires? And so we're treating the same thing with products. Another tempting thing to do is to put in ear drops that are anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, anti-yeast, and they put in all this anti stuff into the ear. But that is a smoke alarm going off. There's something wrong with the skin flora in your ear. The ear is a master at keeping itself regular. So it doesn't matter that your dog has a hangy down ear flap. So does every other dog in its breed. Why does your dog have this current issue? So recurring yeasty issues, recurring yeasty paws. The skin goes kind of bald looking. The coat goes very thin. The skin will go black. So that's a very common sign. And you often get a smell of cheese from the dog. So it's a dog that kind of stinks. And so your car stinks. And sometimes you don't notice until someone else comes into your house and goes, geez, Melissa, your kitchen smells a bit, and it's like when you live with it, you don't really notice it, but kind of like foot odor, I guess. But it's not, none of those symptoms are always there. The most important one is a chronic itchy dog. It's a chronic itch, rubbing his belly along the ground, black skin, the Westie with a thin coat with the black skin on it. They are across the board yeast conditions in Westies. They are so prone to them. Little white dogs. Actually, Helsinki University showed that white dogs suffer more atopy than any other breed. And the more white in your coat, the more atopy you get until you're fully white. So with your white breeds, your Bijans, your Westies, white Golden Retrievers, white Labradors, white German Shepherds, white Boxers, these are really prone to gut conditions, and they can go yeasty very quickly. So once you start seeing, now listen, it might be that I'm just thinking about it all the time, and now I just see yeast everywhere, so I see it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the blue bug that you're looking for.
Yeah, totally.
Bye.
Totally. That's a fact. That's exactly it. And so you have to wonder if that's the case. But I mean, I'm seeing all the chronic itchy dogs, and I'm sorting them out. So
well, ever since your talk, now I'm looking at yeast all the time. So it was a real light bulb moment for me, and I appreciate it so much because I'm so used to just what you said, looking at the microbiome and the bacteria of it. So so glad we're having this talk. I've recently had a client to apply this to real life that came to me, belly just totally black, all the things.
Yeah.
And after I listened to your lecture, and I want you to explain this part too, why we have to tackle the yeast before we would do an FMT. And I'm like, all right, this is a yeast dog. So I said to them, get this product from Dr. Conor Brady. Let's do this for a while first before we go to FMT, or we're going to be spinning our wheels. Why would that? Can you explain that to everyone?
Yeah. So we just found out a couple of years ago that, yeast, people think of yeast in their minds. They probably think of a little single-celled organism floating through your digestive tract. And that is what it does. It's very clever. It's been around for as long as bacteria. So it has been inhabiting us all its time. And yeast wraps itself in cellulose. It's a protective shield. Cellulose is plant fiber. It's what makes plants hard. And so cellulose is really hard to digest. No mammal can do it, including cows and sheep. what cows and sheep do is that they eat lots of grass and they have a huge belly, and they feed the grass to the bacteria, and the bacteria produce cellulase and break down grass. And then the cows absorb the fats that the bacteria produce. So when yeast are inside us, they're already protected by cellulose, which we can't digest. So when yeast grows in large numbers, you've been a week on the lash with the girls and you've been drinking nothing but cocktails and high sugar diets, yeast is loving life. So suddenly you have this huge, growing candida stroke thrush issue. And once it's there, it's hard to put back to bed. It's tricky. It doesn't want to go anywhere. It releases compounds to keep other bacteria at bay. And, it likes to be there, but it's inflammatory. It holds onto lots of heavy metals. It releases lots of little things that were helpful to us when it's in small amounts, but in large amounts, it's like it's pooing everywhere and we just can't take it. So that is one type of yeast that we historically have been used to. But a couple of years ago, we just found out and it was so obvious that somebody puts these pieces together, that true candidiasis is when that yeast turns from a single-celled organism flowing through the gut to going to the gut membrane for sustenance. So, for example, we often say if you have a thrush issue, we say, get off the sugar, starve the yeast of carbs. And that is a common bit of advice. It turns out that yeast will get in a bit of a huff if you do that, and it'll go to your gut membrane for what it wants. And when it gets to the gut membrane, it grows little fingers, like they're called hyphae, which is how a mushroom grows under the soil. It grows because at the end of the day, yeast is a type of mushroom and or type of fungus at least. And so it grows mycelium into your gut membrane, and this is highly inflammatory. The gut membrane is being invaded by this moldy, mushroomy thing, and the little tight cell junctions that hold your gut together start to expand with the arrival of all the swelling and stuff. And so you can develop food intolerances. So these are the dogs that have the NASA-like reading, I'm allergic to the world type reading. It's like, they've got leaky gut. Well, where's the leaky gut coming from? We're working on it, but we can't seem to fix it. It's because you probably have candidiasis. A chemical wormer can cause it, period of stress, obesity, metabolic disease, starving the yeast, doing anything to the yeast, it can drive it to the kibble. Perfect. It's full of chemical anti-life. That's perfect for yeast. It's not full of chemical anti-yeast. So you're putting down the one thing that keeps yeast in the box. So this is why high carbohydrate with anti-life, it's perfect yeast food, which is why, 3/4 of my clients are feeding high carb kibble. So that is the trick. Once it goes to the gut membrane, it's now even harder to kill. Not only is this little thing covered in cellulose, it now coats itself in a goo, which we call a biofilm. So think of plaque on your teeth, and you have to scrub it off every night. And a biofilm is not something we can digest. That's why bacteria release it. It protects them while they get to work. So a candidiasis, a true infection at your gut lining of yeast, is very hard to kill. And up until today, we've been using azole medication. Like I said, it's really tough stuff. But now we know we just need to give a couple of compounds to dissolve the biofilm. And then you need to put in cellulase, which is an enzyme that digests the outside of that cellulose. And now the yeast is exposed and anything will kill it. The last little piece of the puzzle is that once you start killing yeast, it dies off quite quickly. And that die-off can sicken the patient. It's called a Herx effect. Look it up, guys. Loads of diseases this happens with, where the cure can make you really sick because it just sickens you, but particularly with something like yeast. So if you go too heavy on the natural solution very quickly, your pet can actually get sick, really inflamed, like a big red light, down to the vets. And the vet goes, were you trying to fix the dog yourself? I was. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. And then they give lots of anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, and then bang, squish everything down and the yeast gets to stay there. And you're on the train then of monthly injections for stuff.
Steroids don't help either.
No, well, they work to turn off the smoke alarms, but no one stop the fire. The fire just keeps going. So you'll just keep on increasing that dose of anti-inflammatories, and then you'll start getting other autoimmune diseases because the immune system's just wiped out trying to get at this invader in your gut lining. It's extreme, and then you'll start developing food intolerances. Then you'll just start getting weakened, arthritic joints, and suddenly you've got cancer. Where did the cancer come from? It's been warning you for the last 4 or 5 years. So that's the yeast thing in a nutshell. It's a tricky little one. But the reason I go for it before FMT, purely because I know by the symptoms, if I'm looking at yeast, I have an idea that this is probably yeast. Because going the gut biome way is slightly more expensive. FMT is much more complicated thing to produce. It's expensive product to produce. I say expensive. It's actually, I hate using the word expensive. It's of high value when you consider the cost of going to the vet every single month. So expensive is not the right term, but it's a more costly product to produce than a herbal product for yeast. So I just tend to go for something that I can pick up in a day and it's there. And I kind of know by the symptoms before I go with FMT. When you think about FMT, It's the bacteria, but it's also all the yeast, all the healthy, happy yeast of a healthy. So you're sending in the recruits from both sides in a nice balance. So the next generation of sequencers, the people that test the poo, are now going after yeast to find actually what is a normal yeast spread in a happy, healthy fed dog. And so that's the next stage for FMT, that they can start boasting about their yeast contents and whatnot. But that requires, it's brand new science. It's like, well, we've never looked for yeast before. All yeast looks the same under a microscope, but not when you're looking at the gene level of things. So that's what they're starting to do today. They're starting to look at different types of yeast and saying, "Ooh, there's plenty of drugs they can make from these guys, as many as they have probiotics." Yeah.
Fascinating. And, what I always say about FMT is I feel like, if we're just throwing a probiotic at something, A, it's not going to fix the yeast, as you just explained. B, it's like throwing a temporary worker, you have to keep calling them back. It's just a
Yeah.
temp worker.
Exactly.
And you have to keep going with them, where FMT is an entire team. You get a whole new team, and it's a team that works together with the yeast metabolites and all the things go with it. So,
yeah, the over-the-counter
really
probiotics
super valuable.
the over-the-counter probiotics have some major issues. Like, the reason we obsess about lactobacillus and bifido is because those bacteria breathe oxygen. So they're aerobic bacteria, whereas all the bacteria in your gut are anaerobes. So they're not even the bacteria that your guts are calling for. You can't make firmicutes and bacterioids and stuff in the lab. So if you can make them in a lab, we can create studies and we can sell products. So we're obsessed about lactobacillus and bifido because they're the ones we can make in a laboratory and mass produce and therefore create studies. When actually a FMT is every bit of bacteria that you can possibly preserve with the freeze drying process and all the yeast in the right proportions. So you have a plethora of species, most of which you don't even know are there because we just don't understand what is there. And then you dump that, you put that into the dog. And the saying goes, you get what you feed. So if you want rabbits, you throw out carrots. If you feed your dog meat, if you throw meat into the field, you get foxes. And so when you get a lot of different bacteria coming, a lot of different species, whatever diet the dog is on, then you will then grow the ones you need, and the right workers come at the right time. Like if you keep going in with one type of lactobacillus and bifido because of something you read, it's like there's 1,000 plumbers. We need 100 electricians. There's another 1,000 plumbers. We really need 100 electricians. There's another 1,000 plumbers. So you can actually induce dysbiosis by using narrow range probiotics, because it's such a humanist thing to look at this incredibly complicated biome that we know nothing about. It's just all dark matter. We haven't a clue. And we just go, do you know what? I'm going to give it lots of lactobacillus because of this one study that lasted 2 weeks in some puppies. It's like the longer studies now of 4 and 5 months, when you're using narrow-term probiotics, are showing issues. That your gut biome doesn't return to normal when you stay on probiotics. So my warning would be for people, stop giving single, narrow probiotic to healthy dogs. They don't need them. It's about food. It's about prebiotics. It's about a healthy dog. It's about terrain. It's not about putting in probiotics. I rarely use them at all anymore. I mean, it sounds like a promotion, but it's a Legacy Biome thing. I have a tub of them sitting there. And so if the shit hits the fan, excuse my language, if it hits the fan, I would have Legacy Biome handy, and I would just hit them a couple of times with that. And so the Legacy Biome comes in like, I don't need to sell this product, this is your product, but like it's a 30-day kind of spiel. But honestly, I've got that there, and I know I'll use that a few times in my dog. So if I had a bad case, I'd whack him onto it for a while. Some of these dogs that have been chronically gut sick for years, they need a fair whack of it. But I'm a true believer. The studies don't lie. The studies are unbelievable. I mean, just type it into Google Scholar and check out how many tens of thousands of studies have been done on FMT. It's unbelievable. It's just taken off. So it's really effective. Love it.
It really is. And I always talk about it being foundational. After I learned too late, Dr. Brady, what you've known the whole time, or I mean, you've known for years now, digging into the microbiome, it's not about just feeding the one strain. It doesn't matter how high the CFUs are. It doesn't matter. It's how they work as a team within the gut. And I no longer use probiotics on my dog. I use Legacy Biome FMT as kind of a foundational. Every year we do a reset. And sometimes, my little gal is 16. I was giving it to her every other day. She just had to have an urgent surgery yesterday. And I'm glad I'm here today because we weren't quite sure if she was going to make it through. She was healthy as a horse. The vet came out and said, I can't believe how strong that little gal was in this surgery. Fresh food diet, everybody. And she had just gotten done with a foundational FMT round. And I can
Yeah.
hear out there crying right now, so I might have to.
What's wrong with her?
No,
What
it's
happened there?
okay. No, it's okay. My
What happened there?
husband's watching her. She got a really fancy bone graft done in her tooth and her jaw a couple years ago by a vet dentist that wanted to try it and put cadaver bone in and all these things. And
What
yeah,
is this?
yeah, it was pretty crazy. And then she's had a series of kidney issues since then, and we didn't have a chance to go back in and check it. Well, it got infected. It was gnarly,
No,
like
no. Yeah,
rotting. So
yeah,
her kidney numbers went sky high. I mean, sky high, the kind that most dogs
yeah,
don't walk away from. And
yeah,
I said, we got to get this out or she's not going to get better. I mean,
yeah.
I just made the decision. My vet was like, you sure? And I said, I'm sure. Let's do it. We got to do it.
Yeah, take it out. Take it out.
And so
Yeah.
she got it out, and it turns out she had 3 other abscesses in there. So she's
Oh,
going to be a heck of a lot better now.
yeah. That's the people underestimate how bad dirty teeth are. Dirty teeth take out animals from the kingdom. That's how most rabbits and horses and whatnot are die off. But like it's so insidious, you wouldn't even know. Particularly with dogs, you'd never even see it. They wouldn't let you know. But an underground infection takes a savage toll on your immune system. It's like a constant battle. I always often think of the Matrix in that movie where they're just shooting down all these little robots all the time.
Yeah.
It's like it's an exhaustive process because it's constantly trying to invade the gut lining for sustenance. And so that's it. It takes a huge amount of immuno debris, and all that packs up your kidneys, and little bacteria cells get into your heart and whatnot and cause heart disease and pancreatitis. Big link to pancreatitis now. So like you really don't want dirty teeth. And so by the time we see a problem, that's been going on for a while. So that does not need to stay there. I can't believe he got a bone graft. That's just, I mean, was he getting like dentures? Was he getting a fancy?
It's Darla.
It's a she. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm surprised about the bone graft thing. So was the plan to get, like, she wasn't getting a fake tooth, was she? What was she?
Well, no, the plan was to save the tooth. It was a veterinary dentist that was, wanting to try some stuff on her. And she said, do you want to save this tooth if I can? And she's like, I can do this fancy bone graft and, fuse it with the cadaver bone. And I said, sure, let's try it. And I didn't know that it had probably a 1-year shelf life. So little warning to all of y'all, just get the tooth yanked. Don't do the bone graft.
See you later, tooth. No, that's it. You've had a good innings. My dog's 15 years old. If he gets there with half his teeth, I'll be happy, so he's going to have to lose a few bits,
I agree. I mean, she only has 4 left now, but I will have a toothless, healthy dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Teeth.
Yeah.
But Dr. Brady, I'll just tell you this on a side note. She was walking around. I mean, this is the power of fresh food and having a gut that is somewhat going okay, even though there's the gut-mouth connection too. She was rolling around with a bun of 140 for over a month.
Yeah.
And a creatinine of over 3 for over a month. And she was still eating, running, playing.
Yeah.
It didn't get any better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. They're high readings. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. And look, the whole kidney thing is that's very misconstrued as well, because an insidious little tooth condition will spike your kidney readings. It's like thinking of more cars on the road. I often just think of a 6-lane highway, and when you've got a rotten tooth, you're piling on traffic onto that road. That's essentially kidney disease in a nutshell. So sometimes if the vet hasn't checked out the teeth perfectly, because it can be quite difficult to see. But if that's missed, and your dog goes down the chronic kidney disease route, and the vet starts talking about low protein, dry food, and all this other nonsense, when actually, the kidneys are screaming, we've got a problem here, So, don't forget to check those teeth, particularly in ex-dry fed dogs, because a new study just came out from Helsinki University last week. Raw fed dogs have cleaner teeth. No way. So the more dry food you feed, the more tartar you have. And so, anybody feeding dry food with no abrasion in the diet, high carbohydrate diets that stick to the teeth, that stuff is going to grow issues in the dog's teeth. They don't grow in their mouth. They can't move side to side like we can because they're not omnivorous. And so they are meat eaters, so they only snap up and down. So there's very little abrasion there unless they're getting raw meaty bones. If they're not getting that, I would think about some natural products to keep the tartar away.
Well, thank you for going off on that little sidebar with me for a minute on Darla, because I do have another question on FMT, but while we're on the topic, I mean, because you're an expert in this as well, I talk a lot about, I've specialized in kidney health for a couple of years now as well,
Ooh,
because of Darla,
yeah,
because the gut is so connected to the kidneys, and the
mm,
kidneys having to filter what
yeah,
may be going into the bloodstream from the gut. Can you explain that a little bit? Why the gut health is so important when it comes to kidney health? Because then we get these dogs like Darla. I mean, she had a nasty C. diff infection that contributed to it, did some damage, but gut health
yeah.
contributing to kidneys tanking.
Yeah, yeah. Like, again, cars on the road. So you have this second brain, they call it, the GALT, GALT, gut associated lymphoid tissue, and it fires off more neurons in your brain. So it is a really active piece of kind of brain like matter all the way around your short intestines. So like this stuff,
Enteric nervous system, everyone.
there you go, and it is 80%, 70, 80%, the figures differ, but it's a lot. It's a chunk of your immune action. It's protecting everything coming into the body. So it's like the castle walls and the soldiers standing right behind it because they're trying to protect the king and queen, the heart and the brain. And so it's a very carefully monitored process at what we bring in from the outside into the body, because we're essentially one big walking tube when you think about it, mouth to butt. So your immune system, that is a very active place. So when you have a problem in your gut, let's say you have been eating poor quality food and now you've got a gut dysbiosis, and there's some couple of bacteria growing that are now called the bad guys, but actually they're fine in the smaller numbers, and they're pooing everywhere and causing inflammation, and that aggravates the gut. And the body doesn't stand by watching this happening. They send in the recruits and try to, hey, talk to the bacteria. What's going on in there? We're overrun. Help us out. And so there starts to be a few little issues in the gut. So that starts to grow inflammation. If you get a yeast infection, you'll start to get issues. But the arrival of, when you antagonize that gut-associated lymphoid tissue, the GALT, you're kicking the beehive. And so you get a lot of immune action around the gut, which swells the line. It's only one cell thick, your gut. So there's all these tight cell junctions. So when you swell that gut lining and pull these apart, you start to get little tiny gaps. It's called leaky gut. And when you've got leaky gut, which is quite common in people that have completely destroyed guts from various different reasons, half digested material can get through, bacteria can get through, bits of pollen can get through, and now the immune system freaks out. It's like you're supposed to be on the other side of the castle walls, and here you are coming over the top. And so you start to have this furious immune response. So that's the first cause of all the chronic kidney disease with gut conditions. All this immune response, all this immuno debris has to be filtered out by the kidneys. So if your kidneys are in perfect health, you might get away with it. But if you have kidneys that have been processing poisonous flea treatments, wormers, annual vaccinations that the dog didn't need because he was already adequately vaccinated with viruses, if you keep on, dirty teeth, chemically preserved, nutritionally defunct kibble, like you're just constantly assaulting the kidneys. Well, then when you've got a raging gut infection and you pile a heap of cars onto the road, you're going to get some whimperings from the kidneys and liver. You're going to start getting a skin issue because the liver is just trying to process all this gunk, and its secondary exuder is the skin. So it'll call on the skin, and next thing you know, you've got lots of spots and stuff. So that's the first thing. The second cause of kidney disease is that through these little gaps that have been created in the gut lining, invaders can come in and they can go anywhere. So that's probably, in my opinion, that would be a lesser cause of it. I would say it's more because of the systemic inflammation caused by a gut condition. That inflammation will infect your kidneys, your liver, your pancreas. Very common for it to get out onto the skin, and huge amounts of histamine release. You'll see this angry red rashes and ear conditions and all that kind of stuff. It's actually this little radiator that's on. It's this war going on in the gut. That's the start of it.
Yeah. Thank you for your thorough explanation when everybody can hear it right from the horse's mouth. I
That's
appreciate
my
that.
understanding of it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, it's my understanding of it too. I always say the GALT is like the command center of the immune system. It's always on surveillance to see what's
Yeah.
coming in. And then when we start to get leaky gut, those tight junctions go wrong, the command center starts to get confused about what's actually an invader. And so,
Yeah.
like in Darla's case, when the wind would blow, instead of being like, oh, pollen, that's okay. We
Yeah.
know we can handle it. It was like, I choose violence. And then,
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
broke out in hives. And
Yeah.
so, that maybe was like, this is why she's like the spokes dog, because
Yeah.
she's my example and my teacher for everything. So everybody, I want this to be the lesson with the amazing Dr. Brady here. When Darla had gut issues her entire life, and now her kidneys are taking the hit, and we're doing our darndest to keep her up. The FMT has, I think, helped a lot. And what, what's your kind of like final word on how FMT could help with the kidney issue? Once again, just by
Well,
helping to repair the dysbiosis?
yeah, I want like I did poo in school, in college even. So like, I want the stool quality. I want the stool score to be 9, 10 out of 10 in any of my dogs. So like, if you've got recurring skin conditions, my first question is how are the poos, how are the stools? And people don't understand why I'm asking that at the start. But once you get them to focus on stool quality, they have to focus on the diet. So I'll move the dog to a very, very simple diet initially because I want to see some good quality stool. That means that the gut isn't inflamed. And if the gut isn't inflamed, you've just saved yourself a chunk of inflammation. No matter what organ is affected, no matter what the problem is, if the poos are good, we're at least setting off on the right track. It's a real foundational thing for them to focus on. And so getting that poo score up to kind of 9 or 10 out of 10, if I can't get on top of that poo score, if it is constantly poor for whatever reason, and it's just hit and miss. His first poo is good, then his next 2 or 3 are just awful. There's these IBS dogs that you just cannot get off the wheel. IBS is this rotten little wheel. Once you're on it, the stress gives you gut conditions gives you dysbiosis, that adds to the stress, which adds to the gut conditions. Round and round you go. Perfect for those sorts of dogs. So like when I can't get on top of the gut condition, my mind immediately goes to FMT. There was a great dude from I'm going to say Cleveland Clinic, was one of your top hospitals, and he's a gastroenterologist. He says, I cannot believe I'm recommending FMT all the time. He says it gets rid of the white noise in 95% of my patients. So he's got this queue of patients. He's like, how am I even going to get through this day? Put them on FMT first, then come to me. And he says, then I can just focus on the issue. So I love that. So I'll try reasonably hard to, get the poo score good and house the dog on some lamb, cooked or raw, whatever's your bag. I don't care. But some real simple single protein diets. How are you on this? How are you on that? Are you better on any protein? No. Okay. You're allergic to the world. If I'm struggling to get those guts right, it's straight to FMT. I'm passing the yeast issue. The yeast issue is like, when the poos are in really good condition and the dogs still have lots of inflammation and itch, I'm going for the yeast issue. But if I can't get those gut scores right, so with the kidney disease dog, if his poos were in good condition, if he was putting out really high quality poos, I would be thinking, all right, the guts are probably, they've had my focus. So I'd be thinking, okay, I'm going to park my FMT for when the poo goes poor, and I'm going to find out what other cars can I take off the road? How much, for example, with kidney disease, a forgotten bit of it is when you're feeding raw dog food or cooked food, it's made on intensively reared chicken, duck, and turkey. An analysis of those meats shows that it's 15 parts omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. So that's really inflammatory. So as much as I love raw dog food and real food and all that kind of stuff, intensively reared meat has an issue. And that is it's fed wheat and corn, totally unnatural for these birds, believe it or not. And that it actually puts a lot of cars on the road, because once that omega-6 to 3 profile goes wrong, it's supposed to be below 3 to 1. So when yours is at 15 to 1, that's highly inflammatory. And not highly, but it's not allowed to get higher than 30, for example. But 15 to 1 is something you'd expect in dry food. So intensively reared chicken, duck. Yeah, so you start asking questions like that. You go, okay, what else can I do here diet-wise? So I've looked at the teeth, I've looked at the stress of the dog. She's not in pain, because that'll add a lot of cars to the road. How do I know my dog is in pain? You put him on pain relief. So a huge portion of bad behavior in dogs is pain related. And this was only pointed out to me a couple of years ago. It's so obvious, I tell everybody and pass it off as my own information. But actually, yeah, Dynamic Dog told me this, if she's listening, but she probably isn't. But and she said, yeah, listen, he's so much poor behavior is the dog's in pain. And I said, well, how would you know? She goes, put him on pain relief. And I'm not a vet, so I can say paracetamol, Panadol, whatever you call it over there. So there's lots of different types of pain, joint on joint, and there's muscle pain and fascia pain. Yes, CBD. Yeah, I want an instant pain relief, because I want to find out. With CBD, it's kind of like it's in the background. I want to give it a whack or something. But don't just go stuffing paracetamol as your dog's, guys. But it is a very effective pain relief, as it is in us. But you're not allowed to say that anymore if you're a vet. You're not allowed to recommend human drugs, so they just stop that because it's effective. But if your dog's behavior improves when he's on pain relief on day 2, oh, look, my dog's like a pussycat. Well, he's in pain then, buddy. So now we can't tell you where the pain is, but at least it gives you sympathy. It's like, oh, has she got some chronic hip dysplasia? She's 12, 14 years old. Is her tooth bad? All that will drive your dog to be reactive to the young dog that's jumping on his back. I'd be the same if my leg was sore and someone was jumping on me. I'd be like, get off. I probably wouldn't have said that to a young lad if I was in good nick. And, So the pain stuff, there's a lot of small wins with kidney disease that people forget. No offense to the vets because they mean the best, but they jump straight to medicines and repression. Put down this with repression. But that for kidney disease is like leaning on an end of a balloon and then whoop, and then I'll put something down here. Whoop, oh, I'll put, it's like a plaster on gangrene. You've got to take the cars off the road, and from teeth to minor changes in the diet, moving to grass-fed meat and high dose omega-3, some natural anti-inflammatories. Don't go too heavy with an anti-inflammatories because that's just trying to bash off the smoke alarms. But making sure you've got a little bit of natural anti-inflammatory, a little bit of golden turmeric paste, which is unbelievable for kidneys, for systemic inflammation. So poo score right is number one. Then dental, make sure the teeth are in great condition. Make sure she's lean as a whip, no obesity. Every extra gram of body fat is inflammatory. So, and then getting your omega-3 levels right and putting in a few little natural anti-inflammatories like golden turmeric paste. There's 5 steps that have to be done. And then you test the bloods again, and you have to make sure when people are testing the bloods for kidney disease, the dog is really well fasted. So 24 hours, 16 hours at a minimum, because you want to make sure, because you want to make sure that last meal was not being registered by the bloods. So particularly when you're measuring bun and creatinine, because protein will spike in the blood when you eat it, and your dog's on a high protein diet. So it's imperative that they don't get breakfast, and they get the bloods done at the same time every day because there's iron up, they move during the day. So getting the bloods done at 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning and making sure she's really well hydrated. Cheat a little bit. We're trying to see some good results here. So a little dollop of probiotic, nice full fat yogurt in a cup of water. And she's like, ooh, lovely, milky water. And yeah, have at it, buddy, because the more diluted our bloods are, the better they'll look and the better I'll feel. So they're my little cheats before I even talk about, you can buy kidney liver tonics, guys. Buy the two of them together, type in veterinary herbalist, and all the kidney tonics contain Romania and dandelion and green leaves, green tea, all that stuff.
Nettle seed is a really underrated.
Awesome. I love that one. Yeah, I just heard that recently as well. So putting that in the background is fab as well, but make sure you've got all the foundation right, or else you're just chasing your tail trying to squish the balloon,
Okay, so we're gonna drive back to the gut lane. So this was one common question. I want to make sure that we cover it for people. I've had several people ask and clients ask, okay, so we had a yeast problem. We do a yeast product. We do a Conor Brady yeast defense or whatever we do. And then we do the FMT. What happens? What's going on in the body if the yeast flares again? I've gotten this question multiple times, like a month down the road, if the yeast starts flaring again and some of these expulsions start to happen.
Yeah, that is tricky. So I would say I'm not hearing a lot of that. So if it's a suspected yeast issue, how do I know it's a yeast issue? Because after a week of putting in an anti-yeast natural product like yeast defeat, the symptoms will start decreasing. The heat will leave the skin, she'll stop at her ear. There'll be some noticeable improvements. And so the next question is, well, how long do I stay on yeast defeat? I used to recommend 2 weeks. Now I've done people a disservice. Now I used to say 3 weeks. I think I'm still doing people a disservice. I would say about 4 weeks now. So 2 to 4 weeks, at least until the symptoms are gone for a while. You're not trying to kill everybody yeast in the body. You're just trying to squish it down. Whatever that growing one was, we squish it down a little bit and then we stop. And so that's how long I would give yeast defeat for. So if it comes back, maybe we didn't give it for long enough. But I wouldn't expect the yeast conditions to come back. That's not what we're hearing in these really troubled cases that we have. Invariably, this is like I'm not allowed to say the word cure, but invariably this is like you hit it and you fix it and it's not coming back. So these are dogs that have been battling it for years and then eventually, it could be yeast, and we kill it and it goes away. So I'm not expecting it to come back. If it does come back, I would reach for the yeast defeat again. I don't see why I wouldn't. But the problem is with an internal yeast condition is it's hard to test. So remember, you can swab the skin. You don't need to pay a vet to do this, guys. Get a home testing kit, a yeast dermatitis kit. They're $40-50, cost nothing. You swab the ear, you post it off to some poor unfortunate veterinary nurse that's going through hundreds of earwax samples a day, and you get your reading back saying your dog has a yeast condition in the ear or on the skin. So that's easy. Internal yeast, on the other hand, is hard. Now that we know when it goes to the gut lining, this ultra infectious kind of, almost like a parasite. Once it goes into that gut membrane. It's very hard to test if you have that condition. The only way you can test is by putting a scope up his bum and checking out what's on the walls. That is a very unlikely thing your vet is going to do. So knowing that you're treating a yeast condition is the tricky bit, because perhaps you use yeast defeat and it wasn't yeast at all. Perhaps a couple of there's some S. boulardii in the product too. It helps reset the biome. Maybe that helps a little bit. So determining that you have a yeast condition is tricky. You're totally in the dark. You don't know what this is. So I would expect it to go. I wouldn't expect it to come back. If I have to use it more than twice, I'm not thinking it's yeast. I'm thinking there's probably something in this product that was helping it. I'd be going for FMT there then. Because I don't know what this is in the gut. There's something constantly. I know it's gut related because anytime I put in something gut related, it helps a little bit. In those conditions where it keeps resetting, I'm just like, oh, do you know what? FMT, break glass and take FMT. They're the perfect cases for that, because I don't know what else to do. And I don't really know, am I looking at a whole big bunch of Clostridium, or is it yeast and something? It's complicated. And without your conventional vets aren't very well suited to help in that situation. There's a whole heap of natural vets that do Zoom consults that are pretty good at that sort of stuff too. Yeah, you jump them on there. Just jump on consults with $50, $80 they charge. Honest to God, you get them for 15 minutes. So you'll get some good ideas from them. You don't need to be at an acute next door veterinary surgery every day with a little bit of itch. You can be talking to a whole heap of vets with all sorts of dark arts under their belt, So I'm not expecting a good yeast condition to come back once I've zapped it. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, Good advice.
Yeah. But in these chronic dogs, you look at them and you go, bloody hell, dog, you look like a street dog. In those really bad conditions, it's like, oh, this is too much. This isn't just a little quirk. This is something bad, So internal and external at the same time. No harm. There's no poisonous ramifications to these products. There's no horrible chemical compounds in it. So it's, isn't it funny that when you're in our world of natural supplements and that kind of stuff, we are permitted 0 side effects. No side effects are ever tolerated by our products. Yep. But if you're taking a pharmaceutical, the side effects might include death and killing somebody. And it's like, what were the side effects?
Failure.
Yeah. Just totally acceptable. A bit of side.
If we have a step back, if we have an expulsion of skin stuff going on, or a herpes reaction a month down the road, it's not working.
It's terrible.
And I know that you've spent so much time talking, saying this can take a long time.
Yeah.
This isn't an overnight fix.
Yeah.
Where we live in this world of we symptom chase and we want something for the symptoms. But if we want to get to true healing, taking care of the yeast and then doing FMT, or if you don't have a yeast problem and just doing the FMT, it's still going to take you 38 to 60 days because we're resetting an entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
And Dr. Brady and I were just talking on before we were recording how lucky we are to have FMT as a tool in our pet parent toolbox for little pets, because it's a heck of a lot harder to get on the human side. And the studies that we're seeing are pretty remarkable on how it can reset the system.
Yeah.
Because what do? Hashtag Dr. Brady, I'm waiting for your line.
Eat shit and live. Is that the line? Eat shit and live. I'm going to trademark that. That is just, that was given to me by my friend Maddie. We were sitting around having a glass of wine and we were thinking of funny things. And then she goes, what about eat shit and live? And I thought, oh my God, that is so good. That's a t-shirt. If I was
I immediately wrote an email to Jason and Greg. And I said, that was fantastic. I wish I would have thought of it.
Yeah. Just a poo emoji, eat shit and live. People would wonder who you are and why you say those things.
I can't thank you enough for what you do, Dr. Brady. Is there anything I didn't ask you or anything you want to leave these pet parents with before we go today? I mean, we had a heck of a conversation.
Yeah. No, I think we're doing pretty good. I definitely think people should, if they aren't feeding real food to their dog, they should just start off. And the very easiest way to do is, hey, buddy, you want some blueberries? Would you like a tin of sardines? Delicious. Do you think your cat wouldn't like a tin of sardines? The best protein ever. Lots of omega-3. It's cooked, so you don't have to worry about your animal dying. Do you know, actually, on the cat thing, I'll leave you with this factoid just to see how wrong you can be at one of your guesses, Melissa. Do you know how many birds domestic cats in the US alone take every year? How many birds do you think they take from the environment? Domestic cats.
Probably probably close to zero these days because all these kitty cats stay inside and get fed kibble.
Yeah, well, that's a terrible guess. So we're going to go the opposite. Do you know what the answer is? And you can just chat GBT it, and the studies come up very quickly. 1.5 to 4 billion birds a year, domestic cats in the US. 1.4 billion birds. Now, guess how many small mammals the same domestic cats take out of the environment every year in the US?
Whoa, no idea.
16 to 20 billion small mammals.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like that is a cat. Now that animal is clearly 80% of the cats in the UK have some wild prey inside them, even the ones living at home, which is weird when you think about it. So they're probably catching a few mice. So this is clearly an out and out carnivore, and Mars is still feeding them 40% carbohydrates.
Yeah.
That just shows the level of science that's going in there. It's just utter nonsense. There's no scientific evidence to say cats would do better the more carbs you feed them. Not a single study. So what are you doing feeding it to them? Dry food? You know, who wants to live on crackers? So, you know, please guys, just start adding some real food to the bowl. Cook a bit of beef mince for yourself. Give some to the dog. Crack in a raw egg. Talk about complete food. Delicious. You know, add in some real food to the bowl. See what your dog likes. Give him a bit of carrot, give him a raw meaty bone if you dare. But as you start increasing the real food, the less of that kibble you feed, the better off that dog is going to be, and the less you're going to spend at the vets, and the longer you're going to have with them. There is no downside to feeding your dog real food. So I urge you to start just putting some things in the bowl, and you don't need to jump straight into the deep end straight away. Just start feeding the dog yourself. You know you're able, and just shake off the nonsense you've been listening to for the last few decades. Yeah.
Straight from the expert. This has just been awesome. So fantastic. I mean, I'm sitting here just soaking it up and learning. So I can't imagine pet parents, please download, subscribe, listen to this over and over. Check out Dr. Brady's website, and he's got some great courses on there. Check out his food calculator. There's all sorts of stuff coming up, and we're going to look for and probably post that link to his Yeast Talk that he's going to get on his website. We can make sure that we can hopefully help you out with that too. We'll see where the podcast comes and where we're at with the recording. So until next time, thanks for joining. And as always, positive vibes. Take care, everyone.
See ya.